I'm in a bit of a roll today with videos. This is actually my fourth in a row. I do make a lot of videos, but this is quite a lot for one day. The reason for that is this is a pretty eventful news day, so that's just, if you're wondering why I'm making so many videos in a row. I do want to comment about this though, because it's something I think is really ridiculous, for want of a better term. Basically, there's a report in Al Jazeera about deaths reported in, I'll get the exact headline up here and I'll put a link to this story. Right now there's a major drive against polio in the world. Polio is a terrible disease, a crippling disease. President Roosevelt suffered from it. But the World Health Organization had been winning that battle to the point where only, I believe, 4 countries had it. That was Nigeria, Afghanistan, India and Pakistan. There has been polio-like cases reported in the United States recently, but that doesn't necessarily mean polio. In India, it had been thought to be eradicated, but may be creeping back, so there's no time to be complacent. Nevertheless, most countries have completely wiped polio out, and that's good news. It is definitely good news. In a world of bad news, that is good news. So that's why this story is just sickening, really. The headline is Deaths in Series of Attacks Across Pakistan. Bombings targeting polio vaccination workers and gunfire exchange leave at least 21 dead in northwest Pakistan. Now, I already knew that polio workers were targeted, but hadn't made any videos about it. A roadside bomb has struck tribal police assigned to guard polio workers in northwest Pakistan, killing at least 12 people. 11 soldiers and 1 child were reportedly among those killed in Saturday's attack in the Jamrod area in the northwest Khyber tribal agency. At least 10 others were injured. You have to question some human nature when you get sadists who would actually target polio workers. I mean, what sort of primitive mindset do these people have, that they regard their enemy as people who are trying to deliver vaccinations for a deadly disease? What sort of fucked up mentality is that? Sorry for the language, but the stupidity of this heralds expletives, because it's just so messed up. How could I'll look further in the report. Let's see if anyone's claimed responsibility. No group immediately claimed responsibility for either of the attacks. This just defies belief. This wasn't Pakistani soldiers. This wasn't politicians. Not that I'm condoning those sort of attacks, but this was polio workers, for goodness sake. This was people who are trying to deliver vaccinations to people suffering a terrible disease. Now, what sort of messed up mentality would regard those sort of people as the enemy? It's just really messed up. There isn't really much more I could say in this video that sums up what I think of that, but I think it's just a tragedy for Pakistan that Pakistan has to deal with such absolute cavemen. And Pakistanis, I know this because I've seen a lot of Pakistani associates I have online often cringe at how their country is viewed to the rest of the world, and there's plenty of intelligent Pakistanis out there who no doubt hate how Pakistan is viewed to the rest of the world. But the sad reality is this is how Pakistan comes across, as a land full of religious fascist cavemen morons, for want of a better term. And I'm not saying that to mock the situation. I'm saying it because it's so sad. It's so sad that you have these barbarians who are holding this country back. A country of 170 million people, 180 million people. And the greatest tragedy about Pakistan is its religious bullshit, quite honestly. I'm not saying religion per se, because religion in itself isn't necessarily bad. Rather, it's this religious fascism that just infest Pakistan like a virus. And too many Pakistanis live in denial about this. They complain about how the outside world portrays Pakistan as a land of terrorists, but there's several things to consider. Number one, Pakistanis are the main victims. Okay, that's the first point to consider. And number two, if you're Pakistani and you don't like how your country is being portrayed, then don't endorse religious fundamentalism. I'm not saying that every Pakistani is a religious fundamentalist. I'm not saying that for a second. But too many Pakistanis deny that there is a problem with this, and too many don't do enough to take this on. Now, I know it's dangerous as individuals to take this on in a country like Pakistan, but too many excuses are made for theocracy. And I know everyone hates the Taliban, but this goes beyond the Taliban. This also is about issues like the blasphemy laws. And it all relates, actually. You may think, the blasphemy laws have nothing to do with terrorism. It does relate, because it is connected with religious fundamentalism. Most of Pakistan's problems today are probably connected to religious fundamentalism. Yes, there's other problems like corruption and poverty that you find in other parts of the world, but there are problems that Pakistan persists in having, and I do think it relates to this religious fascism that you see in cases like this, and it's tragic. I hope I can read about Pakistan 10, 20 years from now, and we're not going to see this sort of shit, but sadly I don't know if Pakistani society is ready for it. And that's not a racist comment, it's a realistic comment. And I think it's tragic because the people of Pakistan deserve better.